of the press and things like that. So he's promised to basically bring Poland back.
Yeah, and help us to understand this bringing people back, as he puts it. How does this opposition, this centrist coalition, contrast with the right-wing Law and Justice Party?
So the ruling Law and Justice government has kind of opposed many European rules, many rules set in Brussels of the European Union, and they kind of tried to do their own thing in the country, which included replacing judges, independent judges, with judges selected by the government. Many issues with how the public broadcaster became a mouthpiece of the government, but also backsliding on women's reproductive rights, rights of sexual minorities. So there was a lot of backsliding in terms of what a democratic country should look like, according to international observers, according to the opposition groups especially. And so the opposition that currently looks set to win majority, they've promised to bring Poland back to that kind of democratic state.
Bartosz, just to be clear, as you say, the votes are not all counted yet. What is the timeline going forward, and how certain or uncertain is it that the opposition has won here?
The votes are being counted today, and we should have the final results on Tuesday. At the moment, we see that the counting started in small villages and rural areas where the current government has most of the support. So at the moment, compared to the exit polls, the projections look different, but that's because big cities like Warsaw have not had their votes fully accounted for yet. So we will likely have to wait until later tonight, possibly tomorrow morning, to get the final results. However, in terms of the overall results, there aren't that many surprises expected.
Now, the turnout here was remarkable. What was it like at the polls? The crowds, the energy, they in some places voted until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Indeed. So in terms of the electoral turnout, this was the biggest turnout in the modern history since 1989, and even bigger than that election. I just left a press conference with international observers where they raised a lot of issues about the election, the way the government has kind of played the rules unfairly and misused public funding to win this election. And yet they praised the electorate at the polls, who waited, like you said, until 3 a.m. in certain cases to be able to cast their votes. There was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of hope. In some cases, people even kind of joined impromptu sing-a-thons while they were waiting in hour-long queues.
Really? What were they singing?
Oh, it was a song from early 2000s, like a pop song, but it was basically about freedom, being free and being able to do what you want, in a way kind of symbolizing what this election was about.
And finally, Bartosz, I want to ask you about the stakes for Europe. Some of the commentators suggest a tectonic shift is underway. In places like Poland and Spain, there has been a move away from right-wing populists. How might this resonate beyond Poland?
This kind of outcome is likely to resonate very heavily in other Eastern European countries. Hungary has seen backsliding of democracy, and it's gone even further in some cases than Poland in reversing some democratic rules. Slovakia recently won, a populist party won an election there, but overall this is seen as a sign that populism only gets you so far. We've had 8 years of populist conservative rule in Poland, and now it's a clear sign that the fifth largest country in Europe has had enough. And so it's a very promising result from what the rest of Europe is looking at it.
We have been talking to Bartosz Brzezinski. He's a reporter for Politico covering the Polish elections. Bartosz, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
Here and Now is a production of NPR and WBUR. I'm Scott Tong in Washington, D.C.
I'm Deepa Fernandez in Alameda, California. Thanks for spending some time with us. It's Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from WBUR Boston and from BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 25,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
It was like a huge sound with a fire coming next to the window. Like if you ever heard the worst thunder ever, but it's multiplied by hundreds of times of that sound. Like it will make you deaf.
I'm Sabrina Tavernisi. That's today on The Daily from The New York Times.
Every weekday at 6:30 on Radio IQ. Radio IQ programming is supported by Roanoke Park.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our City Council meeting for October 16th at 2 o'clock p.m. We're glad that you all are here this afternoon. Mayor Lee won't be with us today. I'm going to ask our clerk, Susie McCoy, to please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones? Here. Mr. Pretty?
Here.
Ms. White-Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Vollison?
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Here.
And Mayor Lee is absent.
Thank you. A quorum is present. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce Reverend Anthony Holmes, pastor at Loudon Avenue Christian Church, who will bring our invocation, and then I'll lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand?
Good afternoon. Shall we pray? Our God and our Creator, we pause at this moment prior to engaging in the business and work of this great city to make our first priority thanking you for being a faithful God. Thank you, God, for your grace, your mercy, compassion, and unfailing love. We pray now for our city and each life that dwells within it. We pray for your guidance in seeking and developing effective resolutions to the many issues that we face. We pray for your strength to stand up against evil, wickedness, and hate. We pray for the faith to trust you and see the good inside of one another, that we would be able, to the best of our ability, treat each other with the love, kindness, respect, and grace that you have treated us and that you expect from us. We thank you for the women and men who serve our city and its people in these roles of leadership. We pray that you would grant our leaders wisdom, that they may be able to do things beyond their own understanding and power for the advancement of abundant life for all people. Grant them the grace and courage to make sound decisions that align with your will for this city and its citizens. And while they faithfully serve, we pray for their families and their acts that you would bless, protect, and prosper them for the sacrifice they make at the cost of leadership. Remind our leaders and all who serve alongside them each day of why they decided to dedicate their lives to public service, and use that commitment to encourage them to do what is best and just, not only for one or some, but for all. This prayer we lift to you this day, our divine Creator and Sustainer. In the name of He who is the way, the truth, and the life, we do pray and say amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Holmes. A couple of announcements. The council meetings will be televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can watch them all day. It's binge watching RVTV. And video stream through Facebook Live at facebook.com/RoanokeVA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. The Council of the City of Roanoke is seeking applications for various vacancies on council-appointed authorities, boards, commissions, and committees. And you can access applications for these boards and commissions at the city's website at roanokeva.gov. And we encourage you to complete an online application. This afternoon, we have a number of presentations and acknowledgments, and I'm going to go down to the dais. And first, I'll ask Adam Neal, Director of Roanoke Area Youth Substance Abuse Coalition, and I believe Jim O'Hare, who is the president of that board, if you'll join me. Our first proclamation this afternoon is in honor and celebration of Red Ribbon Week. Whereas alcohol and drug abuse in this nation have reached epidemic stages, and whereas it is imperative that visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs, whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, no use of illegal drugs. Whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign will be celebrated in every community in America during the week of October 22nd through 28th. Whereas government, law enforcement, media, businesses, medical institutions, religious institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, parents, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. And whereas the City of Roanoke further encourages its citizens to participate in drug prevention education activities, not only during Red Ribbon Week, but all year long. Now therefore, I, Joseph L. Cobb, Vice Mayor, on behalf of Sherman P. Lee Sr., Mayor of the City of Roanoke, do hereby proclaim October 22nd through 28th throughout this great seven-time All-America city as Red Ribbon Week. Jim, present this to you, if you'd like to say anything.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor and members of council. Since I've retired from the City of Roanoke, I've become a little more absent-minded, so I brought along just some notes real quick. Mr. Neal, the director of RASAC, asked me to remind you or let you know that this year's theme to Red Ribbon Week is to be kind to your mind. And so far we have 11 city schools registered and over 30 registered throughout the valley. We're able to present our opioid education program, Opioid Wise, to schools, to after-school programs at Lucy Addison, James Madison Middle School, through the YMCA's Beacon program. And we've done Noel C. Taylor through the regular school day for both high school and middle school students. We're proud to work with the City of Roanoke to address the ongoing opioid epidemic and to provide our youth with substance abuse prevention, programming, and support. And finally, I just want to remind everybody that the next Drug Take-Back Day is Saturday, October 28th from 10 to 2. Historically, the locations are still being determined, but historically they've been at CVS at Towers, the CVS at 9th Street in Southeast, and the Community Solutions Center on Melrose. Thank you very much.
Anyone on council have anything you want to say? We're good?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Picture. Trish, photo.
My job. All right, I'll give you a little count. 1, 2, 3. And let me turn it this way. Joseph, talk. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Katie Kennedy, Program Manager of Lead Safe Roanoke, and I believe Marla is also here. You come on up. Any of the others on your team that are here that want to come up, bring them on up. Whereas lead exposure to children can result from multiple sources and can cause irreversible and lifelong health effects, whereas lead is especially dangerous to children under the age of 6, whereas lead poisoning is preventable, the key is to keep children from coming into contact with lead, Whereas there are simple steps that can be taken to protect all family members from lead-based paint hazards in the home, and whereas education and awareness about the dangers of lead can help protect the lives of children living in the state of Virginia. Now, therefore, I, Joseph L. Cobb, Vice Mayor on behalf of Sherman P. Lee, Sr., Mayor of the City of Roanoke, encourage all citizens to observe this week with appropriate programs and activities designed to enhance public awareness of lead poisoning prevention and to protect their families from lead poisoning, and hereby declare October 24 through 30, 2023 as National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. Katie, I will present this to you, and you're welcome to say anything.
Thank you all so much for always supporting our program. We have a $3.7 million grant that we're getting ready to finish up within the next year, but we'll be celebrating Lead Poisoning Prevention Week with visits to Roanoke City Public Schools, a presentation for our medical professionals at Carillion, and also working with some of our real estate and landlords so that they're aware in their rental properties what they need to do to make sure that they're keeping the families that they're housing lead safe. Also following along on our Facebook page, we'll be sharing a lot of information, and we're continuing to accept applications. So if there are families out there who qualify for our services, come on, we'd be happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments?
Question and a comment. How many houses are you able to cover with $3.7 million?
The goal is 140.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then just a brief comment. I first met Marla years ago. This was back during the MOTA, the Melrose Orange Avenue, Target Avenue meetings, and there are always a lot of difficult topics that are discussed when we're trying to prioritize what we're doing, but when you stood up, everyone in the room knew you, everyone was warm to you. Everywhere I go, people know you, and they are proud of the work that you're that you all are doing, and please do continue to keep it up, because this is incredibly important for our children.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. Lead Safe Roanoke is one of the most successful programs that we've had, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. As a realtor, I know the housing stock in Roanoke needs some updating, and so this is really helpful for our citizens. So thank you again for everything that you do.
Thank you. Have my Kleenex. Yeah, just a
put
little
it
bit.
behind
There
there.
you
There you
are.
go.
That's great. Great picture. Thank you. Hold on. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you. Thank you. It's always a
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Pedro Salai to come and join me here at the podium. And we have a resolution recognizing the outstanding contributions of this young man. And I need a motion and a second.
Move the resolution.
second.
All right. Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask if you would please read the resolution in its entirety.
A resolution recognizing Pedro Salai during Hispanic Heritage Month for his outstanding contributions to arts and culture in the city of Roanoke. Whereas Mr. Salai was born in La Garra, Venezuela, and has inspired young dancers across the Roanoke region and beyond. Whereas Mr. Salai has performed with the prestigious New York Dance Theater and became a company dancer with the Richmond Ballet for a decade. Whereas Mr. Salai was appointed as the artistic director for the Southwest Virginia Ballet in 2007. Whereas while living in Richmond, Mr. Salai became involved with Minds in Motion, a dance program teaching public school students. Whereas Mr. Salai developed a Spanish language choreographed movement program, Dance Espanol, in 2012 for elementary age children. Whereas the Dance Espanol program uses dance as a method to build collaboration and community engagement. Whereas Mr. Salai further collaborated with Roanoke City Public Schools to expand this programming to middle and high school students at no expense to the students. Whereas Mr. Salah has now worked for Roanoke City Public Schools for more than 15 years. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Roanoke as follows. 1, the City Council adopts this resolution as a means of recognizing Pedro Salah for his contributions to arts and culture in the City of Roanoke. Number 2, the City Clerk is directed to provide an attested copy of this resolution to Pedro Salah.
Thank you. And now I'll have you please call the roll on the resolution.
All right. Ms. Sanchez-Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye. It's unanimous. Ms. Sanchez-Jones, I believe, has some additional thoughts she'd like to share, and then we'll get some photographs.
It is with great pride that I would like to present you this token of our appreciation, councils, myself, for all you have done for our children and our city. So here you go.
Thank you.
You are one of our stars.
Would any council members like to share a few words?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to say, Pedro, it's just so exciting to see what you've done in our city here in Roanoke, and we're so glad to have you. You've actually put us on the map. But every time I see that production of the Nutcracker, it gets better and better. I mean, you're just so amazing with those students, and I just look forward to seeing what you have in store for us this fall. Thank you.
Pedro, you are such a leader in the arts community. And it was great to get to know you more when we had that facilitation together and everything. But it's been great to see your dancers all throughout the city, whether that's at the Symphony Under the Stars or the Nutcracker. You've really done a great job with continuing to grow the program and making sure that dance can be an outlet for children. So thank you for everything that you've done for our city.
Well, Pedro, I just want to say both of my children are graduates of Dance Espanol, and they learned a lot. Even if not every child continues to dance, you plant a seed of joy and delight and wonder within them, and we are all grateful for that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Could we get a picture?
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
I think we'd like all of council to come down.
Yes.
Picture right here.
Is that what you did, Bob? Since the photographer is...
And we have one more presentation this afternoon, recognition of the VML, which is Virginia Municipal League 2023 Innovation Award for Economic Development for the Revitalization of Historic Fire Station Number 1, and I'm going to ask our city manager to introduce this.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mark to come up while I'm doing this, and he'll introduce the folks that are here. And first, I want to thank Councilmember Moon Reynolds and Councilmember Volleson, because they were there at VML, as I know others were, but they had the opportunity to be here at the award ceremony and help represent the council. But certainly that took place on the other side of Virginia, and we wanted to be able to acknowledge what took place here at this meeting. And probably the significance of this, for those of you that have been, obviously, I think all the council members have been to the historic fire station and seen what has happened in that location. This is one of those examples where the city has taken something that frankly was a liability to the city and been able to coordinate with a development team to actually be able to come in and turn it into a significant asset, something that, again, was liability that now is actually had millions of dollars invested in it and continues to create economic activity. So a definite win for us on the economic development side, and thankful that Virginia Municipal League agreed and recognized the project in their award. And with that, I'll have Mark kind of introduce the folks that are here and anything else that you want to say.
Thanks so much, Bob, and good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to introduce the folks that have been involved directly, both in the application that won us the award and the project itself. First of all, on the economic development staff, Brady Woolwine played a key role in putting together the application and the video. We're going to show if we show the video, I'm not sure if we will or not, but if we don't, it's available on YouTube even if you can't find it here. Also, and I'd like Brady and the other folks to come up, the members of Old School Partners, David Hill and Greg Rhodes and Dale Wilkinson, played such key roles in developing this project. They were so wonderful to work with from start to finish. It took us a couple of years to land on the right developer, and then once we did, it was evident from what you see there today that these folks were the perfect people to do that job.
I'll always get a shot at talking when I get a free mic, but I just want to thank the city manager and Mark for their patience in helping us bring this project about. Urban renewal in and of itself as a development tool has pretty much weakened, I think, this community, and projects like this that are historical renovation tell our community story, and we need more of that to strengthen the fabric of it. And council, through COVID and other challenges, has been extremely patient with us throughout this. We're glad it's finally come around. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
That's good. You said it.
Sure.
Oh, that is heavy.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah, we gotta get you guys in our newsletter. Just a little bit, yeah, away from the podium. That's perfect. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Let me get one more, see if I can get these faces bigger. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
I went to a birthday party upstairs. I went to a birthday party upstairs.
Thank you all very much. Those are wonderful ways to celebrate our community. All right, we're going to move on to item 3, which is the hearing of citizens upon public matters. And council sets this time aside as a priority for citizens to be heard. And all matters will be referred to the city manager for response, recommendation, or report to council as he may deem appropriate. Madam Clerk, do we have any citizens signed up to speak today?
We do. We have 3 speakers.
Okay.
The first speaker is Sylvia King.
Can you repeat that last name from?
Sylvia King, K-I-N-G.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Welcome, Ms. King. Come right up here. And I believe everybody has 5 minutes today?
5 minutes,
All right.
yes.
Good afternoon to each and every one, and to our Mayor Lee, who's in his absence, and Vice Mayor Cobbs, who's presiding over this meeting today, and the rest of the city council members. It's an honor and a privilege to stand before you all on behalf of the members of the Bragg Advocate Association organization under the leadership of Laura Hartman for the Roanoke City buses. I come to represent them and with the concern of the topic is designated smoking area at the bus station. And it's a real concern, and I'd like to just give my testimony for a second is that I'm originally from this area, but I lived in North Carolina, and in 2011, I got diagnosis with tongue cancer. And it's like, tongue cancer, where did that come from? And it comes from, I can identify with smokers because it comes from being a smoker or a secondhand smoke. Okay, and any other bus, I always rode a bus in different cities and states and stuff. So therefore, this is the first bus station that I have seen where there is no allocation designated area for smokers versus just letting them be free to smoke anywhere before you step into on the bus. Okay, because that secondhand smoke is just as dangerous as if you were a smoker yourself. And you may not identify if you don't ride the bus, but the ones that do ride the bus, and I would love to see the statistics of how many people has gotten cancer from being in that situation, okay? Or had lung cancer. It doesn't matter, but the statistic is that we can help prevent that for a simple thing. If we just had a sign to say, well, this is the designated area that you need to smoke. Whether they're advocate or they're bus drivers or riders, we got to help one another out. And it's going to save the city money also, too, in reference of, just like at Red Ribbon, when there's drugs, alcohol, smoking, it should be classified in that same category. Because what it is, it's a danger to all our health and the individual also. So I'm just here to just stand to give that testimony that when I did that in Raleigh, North Carolina, I went before the city council there in Durham, North Carolina, and just letting them know that, hey, we need a designated area for smoking. Because I know it's addiction, and it's a habit, and you just can't get rid of it at once. So therefore, the advocate, the brass advocate of smoking, all we want is a designated sign to let the smokers know that they can smoke here or smoke there, but do not smoke when you're walking across to get on the bus. And like I say, I want to repeat this, not only the riders, but also the bus drivers. You know, and I used to wear masks before, a scarf over my face and stuff, before the pandemic came, because I did not want to inhale that smoke. So City Council, I plead with you all, can take in consideration, just like I said, you may not ride the bus, but some of your citizens do ride the bus, and the bus is important because that do help the community. It does help funding. It does help jobs and everything. We have a lot more things we're going to be doing, but this is one thing that we can ensure that individuals keep their health. And I want to make a special acknowledgement with the City Council, Trentez Jones, because she is the one I was telling her about, sharing my testimony, and she's the one who was telling me about this advocate and group, and I just wanted to just give her knowledge to say thank you. Here I am. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Ms. King. We appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Chris Kraft, and I don't see him here. And then our last speaker is Frida Cathcart.
Thank you for this opportunity to address the City Council. I greatly appreciate it. I'm not going to be speaking about the handout that I just gave you all. I just wanted to hand deliver it because it's very important communication. So I wanted to make sure that you got it, and I'll be following up with an email because it has hyperlinks in it. I didn't follow up with the email the last time because everything I was going to say was said later in the meeting. And yay, I was really pleased. Thank you, City Manager Cal, for y'all's good work on the flood resiliency plan that I hope that you all do approve today. I'm not here to speak about that either. I'm here to speak about a very personal issue that affects most people's lives, probably everybody's life. And I first wanted to start off by reading a White House press statement that was sent out last year, where it said the President and First Lady reignited the White House cancer moonshot to mobilize a national effort to end cancer as we know it. We're building a world where the word cancer loses its power. A diagnosis isn't a death sentence. We prevent cancer before it starts. We catch cancer early so people live longer and healthier lives. And patients and families don't have to navigate their cancer journey alone. Cancer touches every American in some way and is still the second leading cause of death in America, despite the progress we've made in recent decades. By bringing together the federal government, healthcare providers, researchers, patients, caregivers, advocates, and the public and private sectors, the Cancer Moonshot is dramatically accelerating progress in the fight against cancer. The Cancer Moonshot is mobilizing efforts toward achieving two clear goals that the President and First Lady set: to prevent more than 4 million cancer deaths by 2047 and to improve the experience of people who are touched by cancer. We can make real progress toward ending cancer as we know it. It will take all of us doing our part. Join us. In July, I told you all that my husband looked like he had 4th stage cancer. I didn't have the diagnosis at that time. When we did get the diagnosis, it's one of the most terrifying diagnoses that a family can get. Stage 4B, neuroendocrine small cell carcinoma. No known cure, poor prognosis. We could tell by the somber looks of the doctors at the Blue Ridge Cancer Center, even though they didn't say get his affairs in order, that that's what they were basically communicating to us. I had to drag my husband to Duke on August 3rd, where we happened to have an appointment with the doctor who wrote the paper for the new FDA protocol that my husband's currently on. I am so grateful and happy to report that my husband has gone from dying with cancer, and he was dying with cancer, to living with cancer. And I pray and I appreciate everybody's prayers that he continues this journey into remission until he's finally free of cancer. And that there's hope that that will happen. You know, President Biden's son died of a brain tumor. And a friend of mine's friend had a brain tumor where she was told like there wasn't much hope for her. She just found out yesterday that her cancer's in remission. She's been doing something called hydrogen therapy, which my husband isn't eligible for right now when he's doing the protocol that he's on, but after he finishes the protocol, he'll be able to do things like that. When we communicate with each other and share with each other what's happening, we can help each other. I put on Facebook one of the updates about my husband and how he was doing better because he's tinglings in his fingers. And one of our friends responded that she was taking this over-the-counter supplement that prevented that with her. But I asked Duke, because I have to ask Duke, because he's got such a rare aggressive form of cancer, to make sure that it isn't contradicted with the protocol that he's on. And we just heard today that he can take that supplement. Otherwise, when he has his chemo cycles, he just feels a little fatigued at this point. He cooked me dinner the other night. He loves to cook. It was the best chicken pot pie I've ever had. I just wanted to bring this message of hope to people so that when they hear, or just so they're not afraid to go and be diagnosed. Don't wait. If you think something might be happening, find out what the truth is and then find out help. And don't be afraid to tell people. People will help you. Anyhow, I just wanted to take this time to say how grateful I am that we're living in this day and age And I'm sorry it didn't help President Biden's son, but it sure is helping my husband, and I hope it helps your loved ones too. Thank you.
Thank you, Frida, and thank you for sharing that encouraging update about your husband.
Excuse me, Vice Mayor, may I respond to the First Lady that spoke about the smoking for the bus term over here at the bus, if I
Sure.
could, since we moved on after her comments. I just want to say, and I know it will be referred to the city manager, but when we don't really see it, sometimes it get lost as to where we plan to go from here. Because I am not a smoker, but I have had a family member, actually it was my husband's mother, who did have lung cancer, and she had emphysema, and I've had a grandfather who was a smoker and had passed away from lung cancer. So I do understand, and I too, I don't like the smell of smoke. When it comes to people who smoke, they don't realize that once they put it out, it's still on their clothing, and that it does pass by and you do inhale it. So I do hope this is something that Valley Metro will look at, be referred to Valley Metro, to the board, to the board of directors for GRTC to look at and see if we can do something with that recommendation to make a designated place for smokers over at that facility. So I did want to say that. You're welcome.
If I may, just since we're talking about it, and that way it'll be clear, and we can still follow up and stuff as well. I believe, and I'll confirm this, but I believe actually probably the only course of action that we have is to actually refer ultimately to the legislative committee, because as you all know, of course, in Virginia, Commonwealth has decided we cannot make these decisions on our own.
Okay.
And so it would require, so we do have in the state, and for us, we do have one slight area that we've been allowed to actually designate smoking areas, and that has been at the Elmwood Amphitheater, and that required action by the state legislature.
That's right.
And it would, and we've got, I think we have a provision in the legislative agenda this time to try to broaden or expand that.
Yeah.
I have comments to make during motions, miscellaneous comments on this, but this would be the appropriate time, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
So at GoFest this weekend, there was a group, Share the Air. They were there, and they were taking surveys, and the main thing that they're pushing for is how to have cleaner air in public places, namely in our parks. And they had surveys that people were filling out on their iPads. Would you support legislative efforts? And my understanding, this is in coordination with Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. So this is something that they are working on, and I spoke with them at it for some length. This time, I think we're opting to most likely move something to our policy statement so that it would be there more permanently rather than as a priority, but it is something that we're working on continuously here in the city.
Just for clarity, just to help my understanding, what is the difference between designating places here at the municipal building versus somewhere like the bus station?
So
What's
for
the
example,
difference?
if we designate an area here in the municipal building, like outside the doors,
Right.
we're doing it for our employees. So we're doing it as a part of the employment.
Okay, so it's
that's work here.
employees, okay.
Yeah, if we can't actually designate an area to say, now state of Virginia allows you to keep folks from smoking inside buildings, but
Right.
as far as outside areas, we actually cannot designate an area outside the building where we can say this is for smoking. We do that with our employees here with it. And again, the exception is Elmwood, because you all asked for and received permission from the General Assembly, and certainly could do the same here. You can seek that ability and then see where it goes with it. I just didn't want to leave that sort of out there as well. I'll still follow up so I can explain.
Right, I'm just glad
further.
that way it's clear and the public understands that we did hear her and that we'll be looking at something. That's what I was trying to get to. Thank you for clearing it up for me, Bob.
And can I just add, I think we did include that in our current legislative agenda, right, to expand?
It is.
those
It's still
parameters?
limited. It's still right now limited in parks, basically, is where it is limited to. Again, ultimately, as you bring your legislative package forward for recommendation, if you wanted to expand it even further to include something like the transit facility, you certainly could. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ms. King probably saying, what is that? We're talking about Virginia being a Dillon Rule state, which we can only do, what the state, we only have the powers that the state grants us in order to change things like that, and that's one of those things, believe it or not, which is where we are. So that's what we're talking about in making sure that it goes on our legislative agenda, which would go then to the state legislators to try to give us that power. Okay, okay.
Just like Mr. Pete.
Pretty.
If it has to go in the same area of clean air, because basically that's what it comes down to. It's about clean air, what you inhale with. So if it has to go under that umbrella, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll try, for sure. It makes perfect sense what you're asking for. It's not unrealistic. So I'm sure everybody on this council agrees with you.
Yeah, so I would like to see that on our legislative agenda to discuss then. Yes.
So thank you all for that
Thank you.
clarification, and just one other note, thank you for your advocacy. Both Councilwoman Sanchez-Jones and myself serve on the Greater Roanoke Transit Company Board, and we'll make sure that that's included in our agenda just as a note for further advocacy in November.
Yeah.
All right?
Thank you for the Vice Mayor.
All right, we'll move on now to item 4, which is our consent agenda. And just as a reminder, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by members of City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of the items. However, if discussion is desired, an item can be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. I do want to call attention to 2 requests for closed meetings from the mayor and the city manager. First item is to discuss the 2023 Citizen of the Year Award pursuant to Section 2.2-311A10 Code of Virginia as amended. And the second item is to discuss the possible acquisition of real estate in the Gainsborough area of the city of Roanoke, whereby discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.2-311A3 Code of Virginia as amended. I need a motion and second on approval of consent agenda.
So move the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez-Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye. And the consent agenda is approved. There are no public hearings today or petitions and communications, so we'll move on to item 7, which is reports of city officers and comments of the city manager. And we do have one briefing today, and that is regarding an update, a September update on the fiscal year 24 budget. And Mr. Robertson, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of council. One moment as I attempt to, only one on there today. It's easy to find. As I said, good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. Just take a couple of minutes of your time this afternoon. If you look at the first page of your financial report that shows the revenue summary, this is once again the time of year where I guess the finance staff would call it the great grind, spending a lot of time separating fiscal 23 information from the current 3 months information part that goes on each year. We hope some of the numbers, as you've heard me talk about before, maybe look a little wonky because of year-end audit adjustments that will reverse itself out. So quickly, if you don't mind, I'll go down the list with a few items, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. The first thing is you look at real estate tax. You are seeing a little above the 25% target that we're at. That is running, or was running, a little behind, I think, because the due date was October 5th. They're still processing. Jason Cromer, the revenue analyst, indicates that there's been a lot of positive activity added to this account. So no worries there with the real estate as far as the revenue collected. If you look a couple lines down at the personal property tax, you'll see only 2.3% for the year. No worries there. That's just the churn of personal property coming in and out through the reclassification of the proper year. We don't see anything in our talks with the Commissioner of Revenue or any that the revenue analyst is seeing makes us have any worry of our current revenue budgets there. The one that I would like to point out, because it may have a little bit of a issue this year, the Public Service Corporation tax, you can see there's no real activity this year with a $6 million budget. That was changed in the prior year for only one payment a year, and that payment will now come in December. so no problem there. However, a little glitch we've run into in the fiscal '23 year because of the state budget. There's still $3 million outstanding from the state that just kind of got boogered up in the whole state budget delay and things like that. We are looking, we don't think that would threaten our year-end potential surplus at all or anything. However, it does, if it goes past a certain date of being resolved with the state, it may have to go in the current year as opposed to the prior year. So that's a $3 million number, just sort of a warning. You may hear this come back. No overall negative effect to the city. It's just the timing instance with that. So that's the Public Service Corporation tax, which is basically in lieu of personal property taxes from public utilities and the like. Looking back down, sales tax, a little underperforming year to date, but once again, none of the retail information we see is causing us to worry about the revenue estimates at all. The consumer utility tax looks a little light. However, there was a $600,000 item from one of our utilities that had not been processed when this report was run, so that looks good. Everything else, while looks a little lackadaisical in a couple, if you go down to the bottom, permits, fees, and licenses. Once again, one of the things we know, you increased the building inspections fees this last year, and it's going to have, as we see already, a nice impact. However, I don't know, we hadn't been able to get with Chris and his department yet to see if there were any big ones like we had in Carilion last year, because this is a nice healthy increase, and I doubt all of that would be increased inspection fees. But once again, it's a good sign that that number is up. Looking back around in the charges for services, third from the bottom, you will see a little behind the 25% target. We're okay with that. It's over last year by about $500,000. Once again, you increased the fire and the EMS transport fees this year, so we expect that up a bit as well as some of our events and such are performing very well. So all in all, nothing report from the Office of DMV to worry about in our revenues. They're clicking along at what we expected at this point, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Robinson, with the business and occupational license. What did you say about that? I mean, that seems to be, is that normal for this time of the year?
That's one that, and I saw the commissioner in here, so I'm going to turn around and look. You know, that's a once a year kind of payment. What would generate?
When does it normally come in?
Positive, if you don't mind, maybe come up.
I just know it's trending really low. I was just wondering what time of the year does it normally come in? I don't know.
Spring is when the due date is, but
So it's okay to be at 1% right now?
Well, in my opinion, yes, because most of our renewals will come in at the beginning of the year, and that's when people pay. So this is, again, for the fiscal year where we are right now, before the start of the calendar year, we're actually better than we were last year. It's just new businesses that are starting up in places that we've caught through audit who have subsequently filed and paid.
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious why it was so, I mean, I thought, is that normal?
Don't walk away, I'll have another question. Mr. Craig, will these numbers be updated for the budget for penalties and interest after the action that we're considering later today as it relates to penalties for personal property tax?
As far as adjusting the budget, I'd have to look at the city manager. Usually when things, if a change like that in mid-year will increase the revenues, we generally will not increase the budget unless it's significant enough.
Except I think there's a decrease.
We probably will not. I think what we would do, if as we approach the end of the year that becomes necessary, we would, but otherwise we would just realize less revenue than we had budgeted for, most likely. And we've talked with the commissioner about what we think that dollar implication is, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not a sufficient enough number. But it will definitely reflect that it'll be lower probably than what we had projected in the budget.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Other questions on the revenue side?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I do have, when you finish, I do have a question when you get through.
And on the expenditure side, spend less time there. We have analysts who work with each department each month, certainly each quarter. All departments, other than a couple of problem areas around fire and EMS overtime and some areas like that, all departments seem to be experiencing no not any above normal stress than they usually do with their fiscal operation. You will see the one that might stand out halfway in the middle of the page, the Public Works, 45% over a target of about 25, and that once again is the ramping up of the paving program. They try to do as much as they can when it's summer, when it's hot. And other than that, I think we're having no real reports of fiscal stress from departments at this point. So once again, I'd entertain questions.
Okay. The only question I have is every month, the treasurer gives us a copy of the general statement of accountability for the city as well as for the schools. And just like when you show us the actuals the year before and trending up to date, I was just looking at the general statement accountability for the city, and I noticed we're trending a little behind under the consolidated funds, and I'm sure it's nothing to be concerned about, but I did want to see, do you have a copy of that to speak?
No, ma'am.
Well, I could give you this one.
Okay.
And then the same holds true on the school side. So if you could just speak to these two items for me, I would appreciate it. Just like what you did for the financial report for this quarter.
Well, and I will probably have to admit that this is a treasurer's report. It doesn't.
Right. She usually, back in the past, that was always submitted with the financial report. And I had asked last month if we could go ahead and start including it.
Okay.
And I just saw where she was still sending it separate, and it was not being sent at the same time.
And we need to talk with the treasurer about that, because
Okay.
we don't actually receive that report.
Right.
You all have received it, I think, for
Right,
quite
but I
some
mean, in the
time.
past, it was sent to the Director of Finance, as she says on that, and it would be included in the with the financial report as an inclusive packet. And I was just wanting to just get some comments on that, since it is addressed to the finance director. I just want to make sure it's trending okay. I just see the numbers are, they fluctuated a little bit, trending to date from last year of the same time.
Yeah,
That was all.
right.
But if I put you on the spot, no problem.
Well, I mean, I can give you a very general.
Yeah.
I think we were having a meeting with the treasurer as we were talking through the pension investments and things like that a week or so ago. And I think cash flow is doing well. I didn't hear any indication that there's a concern about a potential cash flow problem or anything along those lines as she reviewed the areas of where we have our money and things like that.
Yeah.
But specifically, if you'd like to include a couple of comments about from one month to another, I think.
I would. I was just, like I said, I was just looking at the difference as you showed from actual, and then you showed the actual for the to date for the 23. In this case, it was 22 to 23, and I was just seeing some thousands of dollars, just a little off, and I was just wanting to comment on it. That was all.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Be glad to
Okay.
include that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All right. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. All right, next we will move into our items for action, and we have quite a few of them this afternoon. Mayor alluded to this at our last meeting, but just to let the public know, we, in our overall agenda, receive an agenda report on each of these items, and in addition to the measures and the documentation of each item that we're voting on. And oftentimes we will ask for the city manager to just clarify what these different reports are about. And so, Bob, as we go through this afternoon, if you would be willing to highlight just briefly about each of these so that the public can have a better idea of what we're voting on.
And there is also, should be staff here for most of these also, in case
Okay,
there are
good.
any more in-depth questions that you all have.
All right. Our first item is acceptance of the 2023 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Program grant, and we have two measures. The first is a resolution.
Move the resolution.
I'll-
I'll second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Thank you. I'll ask our city clerk to please read the title paragraph.
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant from the FY 2023 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program made to the City of Roanoke by the United States Department of Justice and authorizing execution of any required documentation on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? Mr. Pretty?
Vice Mayor. This isn't so much in the resolution. I just have a question about the disposition of the firearms as they switch over. I know we have a section in code about when police officers retire that they can purchase their service weapon for a certain amount, but as the police department switches from the .40 caliber to the Glock 9mm, what will happen to those firearms? And is there an option for that, or what's happening with them?
On those on the weapons, when the switch occurs, I am not aware of what's happening internally with the police department policy. At the end of their retirement is when they can get and purchase that service weapon.
And I'm saying, in this case, it's both the sheriff's department and the police department, but we can find out and circle back with you all, because I don't know that they're going to retain any of those, but we'll verify.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what's going to happen with them.
What would happen to them?
Thank you. Any other questions?
And just for those, I mean, we've kind of mentioned, what this grant does is it aids our police and sheriff department in actually switching out their service weapons so that they're moving, as noted, from a .40 caliber Glock to a 9mm Glock. So they're going through that process, and this has local dollars in it, but it's also state dollars that are coming in to assist in that.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Next, I'll entertain a motion and second on the budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the federal government, Department of Justice, for the Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? All right, then, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Item number B is the acceptance of additional funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services for benefit program operations. We have two measures this afternoon. The first is a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of grant funds from the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Social Services and authorizing execution of any required documentation on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Any discussion by council?
So, Mr. Vice Mayor, this is, as you all know, a significant portion of the funding that we use for our DSS facilities comes from the state. And this is actually some additional funding to the tune of $531,000 coming from the state. Does not require a local match in this case. It is mostly related to the increased service delivery that was necessary as Medicaid expanded. So most of it will be used for overhead operational expenses and salaries, as well as temp wages, and then a piece of it will be set aside as some of the Medicaid stuff unwinds basically from what was going on before. But again, this is an additional provision by the state to try to cover those additional workload hours that were necessary and/or will remain necessary as we move forward.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Mr. Cowell, are they planning to hire more people, or this is for people that are already hired to cover overtime? And
Yeah, I believe it's for folks that are already here. You want to come on up? So it's a deeper question than I have the answer to, but I believe it's for folks that are already here. So.
Welcome.
Vice Mayor Cobb, members of council, my name is Meredith Berger, and I am the Human Services Business Administrator, and it's an honor to be here with you today. These funds are primarily intended to, as Mr. Cowell said, unwind from some of the programs that were put in place during the pandemic. At this time, it is possible that we may hire more workers, but we need to be fully staffed and to make some more additional assessment as to the needs on, for caseloads. It's possible, but not yet.
Is everyone back working in the social services building, or there people are still working remotely? I don't know.
We have instituted the city's policy. Our new director, Gwendolyn Coleman, has instituted the 50% telework policy. The benefits program being paperless, I believe, may be working a 60-40 split. And if I am wrong about that, I apologize. I handle money, but
Yes, that's okay.
but I believe that that is the arrangement that they are under. But yes, we are back.
Okay, well, thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Freedy.
Thank you.
Question?
I was thinking about something else, but it's not necessary now. Thank you.
Any other questions? And Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the resolution?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the resolution passes. And now I'll entertain a motion and second on the budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance. Second.
And Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services for local Department of Social Services activities, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Any discussion by council? All right, Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Item C is the acceptance of the fiscal year 2023 federal fiscal year Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Award. We have two measures. The first is a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of the FY 2023 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Award made to the City of Roanoke by the United States Department of Justice, and authorizing execution of any required documentation on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Mr. Cowell, anything you'd like to add about this?
The kind of self-explanatory on what it is, but I'll give a little bit more information. So again, both the police department and the sheriff's office are seeking funding and have secured funding. This does require a 50% match. This is for combined for about 105 bullet-resistant vests. These are vests, believe it or not, vests have an actual shelf life on them. So at a point of a date, they're rotated out and the new ones are replacing that, and that's a part of what this is. And then I wanted to jump back as well, and Sam had texted me and said that the service weapons of the other ones are actually traded in for the new weapons. They actually get credit for those, so there will be, they won't be here anymore.
That's wonderful. Don't be afraid to come up here.
Thank you. Those days are over.
Thank you, Mr. Cowell. Any discussion on the resolution? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Now I'll entertain a motion and second for the budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance. Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the federal government Department of Justice for Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Any discussion by council? All right, then Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Item D is an amendment of the fee compendium to reflect new rates for the Service Industry Parking Program, also known as SIP. And Brian Mann gave us a briefing on this at our last meeting. There is one measure, which is an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
And Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance adopting a new parking fee and amending the fee compendium to add a new fee for the Service Industry Parking Program, SIP, for service workers in the downtown business district at the Campbell, Center in the Square, Church Avenue, Elmwood Park, Gainesboro, and Market garages, as set out below, establishing an effective date and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Thank you. Any discussion?
As Brian mentioned at the briefing last meeting, this is a limited reduction in parking fees for service workers in our downtown area as described in here. We are still very much viewing this as a pilot to kind of see how this goes. Obviously, it's an enterprise, so if we have a number of spaces that are not used under this program, we'll have to revisit it. If we have a lot of activity associated with this program, we'll want to revisit it too. So, I would expect somewhere in 6-9 months we'll come back. Brian will come back and kind of give an update on how it's working on its implementation after we've started marketing it. And those, Brian is certainly here to answer any questions that you might have as well. So, thank you.
Any questions or discussion by council?
No questions, just want to show that, or the state rather, that I guess that the rates go into effect November the 1st.
Thank you.
Next month.
Mr. Pretty?
Mine are probably less questions and more comments based on it. I'd request, if possible, that we could get a report on this in 6 months. I think that would put the report to be around the time of April. And is May roughly when we adopt our fee compendium for the following year?
Yeah, we would do that. It would get presented at least loosely, kind of earlier than that, but certainly its adoption will come in that May time period.
All right, so we should know around that time. That'll give us time to see how it's well underway. I think this is a great program. I think that it's got good parameters that are set around it. I kind of wish that there was a higher threshold than that $32,000, $64,000 for how much an individual can make the prior year on their tax returns. A lot of people that I know that work in the service industry use it as a second job opportunity, and so they may not qualify. And when I also think about people who might be making this as their prime income, they may be more likely to be using the bus or be sharing a car in order to get around, and so they might not particularly be using it. So I hope that in 6 months we can get a report about how it's working, what the people look like that are using it, but what are the unserved population of service industry workers that we want to get into this program, but might not yet qualify. But it's a great program, and thank you for putting it together, Brian. It's wonderful.
Thank you, and I know that you're collaborating with Downtown Roanoke, Inc. and the business community, and their feedback on this will be helpful too. Yeah, all right. I think we're ready to vote then. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item E is the authorization to submit application for fiscal year 25 Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program VHSIP funds. There is one measure, a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
And Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution supporting an application and authorizing the city manager to submit such application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for FY 2025 Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program funds for the improvements to enhance safety for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians on roadway segments and intersections, and authorizing the city manager to take certain actions in connection with such project.
Thank you, Mr. Cowell.
Sure. So as you all know, and I'll probably say this every time we have one of these items that we come forward, is that unlike counties, municipalities are responsible for funding the vast majority of the expenses associated with the transportation system that we have. However, the state does make available a number of grant programs. This is one of those grant programs. This one geared, as it says, specifically toward safety, and in this case, we work with VDOT's consultants to assist us in kind of identifying sort of priority areas. 3 areas have been identified and are a part of this application. That is Williamson Road at Wells Avenue to Airport Road, Melrose Avenue at 24th Street to Peters Creek Road, and Peters Creek Road at Brandon Avenue to Woodhaven Road. And the improvements that, if we're successful, will include high visibility back plates. So if you're looking at a traffic signal, you'll notice the newer signals actually have kind of black plates, really, is what it is. I mean, right behind them. And what that does is that actually causes the signal light to actually stand out more, so it's safer because folks can see that from further distance. Flashing yellow arrows, those would replace what you typically see, which is kind of just a green yield, so it adds a bit of safety with that. And improvements in pedestrian signals and crosswalk improvements. And crosswalk improvements predominantly will be signage and striping associated with those. This is a 90% funded program with a 10% match, and we don't normally bring forward an application for a grant to council. However, there are a couple of instances where that is a requirement of the grant application process, and this is one of those instances. So you'll actually, if we're successful, we'll see this again at the time at which we will accept the award and appropriate the funds. There's actually one later that will do the same that I'll talk about also. And then if there are any other specific questions, I think Dwayne is here to answer, or Ian can answer those also. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions, Mr. Pretty?
Again, more of a comment. I know this year we had updated our strategic plan for council to say that we wanted to look at measuring how many pedestrian and crosswalks that we're updating on top of how many lane miles. And just as that relates to this grant and the audit committee, when we get that information back, to make sure that we're getting and seeing how many crosswalks and what distance that covers, so we can set goals for the future.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Ms. Moon-Reynolds?
Thank you. With regards to the three locations that you're looking at, the intersections, the one, all three actually, do you have pretty much identified your locations for these crosswalks where you'll be looking at, especially for pedestrians, where they cross at? I'm just more curious, is it just only at perhaps the signalization sections, or if there is actual intersections in mind that you're looking at, especially on Williamson Road, where we have had some pedestrians who have had, cross jaywalking and have been.
So the details of the program are still being worked out by the consultant, but this would include unsignalized and signalized intersections. There will be an emphasis on the signalized intersections because those are the ones that have more facility built into them right away. And have greater cost. I mean, if it was just a matter of a sign or two, that the city could easily manage that program. But this is really looking at some of those more expensive and more comprehensive improvements and systemic, so corridor wide. So when we say from Wells to Airport, it's going to look at all of those intersections and really tie in the available crash data that's out there. And emphasize those areas as well.
Yeah. And also when I looked at where you have Melrose Avenue from 24th Street to Peters Creek, that one, I'm just trying to envision, and you just said you all are working on your locations. That one is so sporadic where you just have curve or intersections where they cross over to go down the street. Right. And the one on Peters Creek, when I look at Brandon, that one is just pretty much like a straight. So that's where my curiosity came.
Yeah, and I would anticipate with Peters Creek, if those will be more vehicular related, unless there's adjoining sidewalk.
Right.
In which case there would be an opportunity for pedestrian
just more vehicular, yes. Yeah. And probably the same for Melrose, pretty much then. Versus Williamson Road.
Right.
All right, thank you.
And because Williamson Road is in here, and I always feel like anytime we talk about Williamson Road, we have to always clarify everything with it.
Yeah.
So I do want to add to what Ian was just talking about. So these improvements do not supplant the improvements that we're ultimately pursuing through, as you all know, we got a USDOT grant that will help us explore further safety resolutions on that corridor. So it does not remove that effort, nor does it begin implementing anything that's in those. It does take these areas where there are known issues and known challenges, and frankly, all of these areas already have crosswalks, legal crosswalks in them. It's just elevating whether they're striped, signed, or what have you, and they already have traffic signals. It's just, again, making them more vibrant as they go through. But I want to make sure that that's clear that some of the larger things we've talked about on Williamson Road are not excluded from this, nor are they a part of this.
Right, because every time you mention Williamson Road, that's what they do think. I'm glad you brought that up, Bob. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, then we're ready to vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the resolution passes. Item F is the authorization to submit application for Community Flood Preparedness Fund grants for resilience projects, and there's one measure, a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to submit an application to the Department of Conservation and Recreation for grant funding under the Community Flood Preparedness Fund, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to take such further actions and execute such further documents as may be necessary in connection with this application and grant funding.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy.
So,
Mr.
again,
Cowell?
you had a fairly extensive presentation on this at your last meeting, but just as a kind of reminder of what this is, so there, with Virginia's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, there were dollars set aside for these kinds of efforts and these kinds of projects, and so this is our application to pursue those funds. As was mentioned last time, these are projects that would take place at First Street in Salem, and again, these are all drainage projects, or related, and also the former Ramada Inn property where we had secured federal funds to actually remove the structure. This would be able to do some other things relative to restoring the channel, and so on. And those are identified in there with this. Similar to the last item, we're bringing an application to you, so if we're approved, if we receive the funds, we'll come back again with an acceptance of that grant and an appropriation. The program does require that action in the application phase with these. And I know there's a few folks here that can answer any questions that you might have. And this is directly related to the item that you'll follow next with, which is the flood resiliency plan, because in order to compete for these funds, you have to have that plan in place and approved. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowell. Any discussion? Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the resolution passes. Item G is the adoption of the 2023 Roanoke Flood Resilience Plan, and we have one measure, a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution adopting the 2023 Roanoke Flood Resilience Plan for the city of Roanoke.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Again, you had a lengthy presentation on this. Inside the information that you have and is what's available posted publicly also is the full complete plan. So folks are interested in looking at a couple hundred pages of information on it and technical information. It's there for them to see. Again, what this does is it helps guide both the investments that we already make through stormwater in flood resiliency, and it qualifies us for some funding such as what you just approved the application for. As we mentioned during the briefing, we also view this very much as a dynamic document, meaning it isn't just going to be approved and then kind of set aside, because we'll have to make continued updates and improvements to it as we move through its implementation with it as well. So I think with that, there are folks here that can answer any questions that you might have if there are any more detailed questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the resolution passes. Thank you all. Next, I'll call on our city manager for any additional comments.
Thank you, and I have two, and if Rachel is, Mackenzie, yep, Mackenzie, sorry, I didn't know who was actually doing it, sorry. So if you want to come up, Mackenzie. What I want to do, since I've been heading this in my office, I have to give it to you so you can carry it back. So related to the item that we just approved, I wanted to both acknowledge and also allow Mackenzie to kind of share a little bit about the program that is in place that is a voluntary program. So as you all know, most municipalities, and we're no exception, participate in the National Flood Insurance Program that FEMA has. That's what allows folks to actually buy flood insurance, and there are some requirements that you have to do in order to be in that program. Those are things like you have to have a zoning ordinance that actually deals with it, to have building code that limits where construction can take place and elevations and those kinds of things. And that is kind of the minimum in order to be able to offer that, that insurance in our community. There's another layer of that, which is the CRS, or the Community Rating System, which is a voluntary system, which allows communities to come in and propose additional both restrictions as well as actions that they take, with the benefit of that being that folks, when you're in that program, can get a reduction in the insurance, the cost of the insurance. And I'm going to let Mackenzie explain a little bit about what that program is and the recognition that we actually just received a couple of months ago for our program, which is what the plaque is related to.
Thank you, Bob. My name is Mackenzie Brocker. I'm the Water Quality Administrator for the Stormwater Utility. And as Bob mentioned, the community CRS program stands for Community Rating System, and it's part of the NFIP, or National Flood Insurance Program. And the main benefit to the community that most people see is the reduced flood insurance cost directly to the consumer, which can be significant. But being part of the NFIP program allows us to get federally backed flood insurance as well as disaster assistance for our community. But going beyond that, the CRS program gives us that flood insurance benefit. But from FEMA, the goals of the CRS program are overall to reduce flood damage, reduce and avoid flood damage, strengthen the insurance benefits of the NFIP program, and to foster communities that have comprehensive floodplain management. And the way they do that is they have a class ranking system that goes from 1 to 10, with 10 being kind of the lowest, where you get 0% benefit for reducing costs, and 1 being the highest you can get, with a maximum of 45% off of the flood insurance premiums. And the way they place you in that ranking is based on what type of activities you do as part of your floodplain management programs. And those activities fall into your public information, which is outreach, technical assistant, your website, things like that. Mapping and regulations, that includes your floodplain mapping, leaving floodplains undeveloped where possible, having higher building standards, etc. Floodplain damage reduction, that's buying or elevating flood-prone structures, drainage system maintenance, having comprehensive flood plans in place, as well as your warning and response systems. That's the emergency management piece, before, during, and after flooding, to reduce property damage and loss of life. So since 2008, the City of Roanoke has been a Class 7 community that got residents a 15% discount on their flood insurance premiums. And as of October 1st of this year, 2023, we got verified as a Class 6 community. So we moved up, and that gets our residents and businesses a 20% discount on their flood insurance premiums if they're in the SFHA, the Special Flood Hazard Area, and a 10% premium reduction for those in the non-SFHA area. There's actually only 5 Class 6 communities in the state of Virginia, which we are now one of, and we are the only one off the coast. So it's big props to the City of Roanoke. We are going way above and beyond, not just the state, but what our region is doing. So how did we get there? It was a lot of things, but the main things we were able to accomplish is improving our drainage system maintenance. That's annual maintenance to keep our drainage clear, to move flooding out of the city. Some floodplain acquisition, open space preservation, improving some of our technical reporting and capabilities for floodplain issues, improved critical infrastructure mapping, a repetitive loss area analysis, and a lot of educational and outreach improvements over the years. So this is one example. This is our Flooding in Roanoke brochure. This is an annual publication that we mail out to everyone in the floodplain and or those in repetitive loss areas. It's also on our website, and it has a lot of information about floodplain preparedness, how to identify your risk, how to use the maps, what to know about flooding insurance. It's very comprehensive, and we actually got kudos from the CRS coordinator that this is a document they want to use for other examples for other communities. So this is an example of something that gives us benefits for the CRS for points, but also practical benefits now for our community members to be informed. So one thing to mention is for CRS, moving in these ranks, it actually gets incrementally harder as you get closer and closer to 1. So, jumping from a Class 10 to a Class 9 is pretty simple and easy, but, the jumps as you get closer are much harder and a lot more restrictions and regulations to move through. So in order to move from a Class 7 to a Class 6, It's taken about the past 5 to 6 years of work, a lot of different stormwater staff members involved, interdepartmental efforts and collaboration, a lot of support from leadership to get that to happen. So we're really proud to be able to move our community to a Class 6 and get those benefits for our citizens that need it. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have, but we're very happy that we were able to do that.
Well, congratulations and thank you. Please express our gratitude to the whole department on this extraordinary work. Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Sanchez-Jones?
I don't know if you have the answer, but maybe you could let me know later on. Is the area on Cove Road between Hirschberger, closer to the Jehovah's Witness, that area back there, is that in the floodplain? Is that considered a floodplain? Do you know, that area back there?
I don't know off the top of my head, sorry, I'd have to take a look, but I could take a look at the maps and stuff and get back to you, and I'll shoot you an email.
I have a homeowner that she tried to get flood insurance, and she was, they refused to insure her. So I would like to know how would that work now with these the accreditation that we have.
Okay. Yeah, even if you've had flooding in the past, you should be eligible for flooding insurance, so I'd definitely be happy to check how we can get them some flood insurance and protection.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to kind of acknowledge Mackenzie and Ian and the other folks that are in stormwater and the work that they have done with this. And also thank you all, because as was mentioned, these actions don't come without both changes in policy and budget approval. And this is just one of the efforts that you all have helped us put in place, whether that's, we have an similar ISO rating of 1 in our fire department, which is the best rating that you can have, and that's a kind of mark of excellence. We have a similar rating in our building department for, again, the work that they do, and none of those are possible without both the dedicated staff and your support, because it does cost money to get us to those points. So certainly want to acknowledge that, and thank you, Mackenzie, and you get to take the plaque back. So,
So, I did have a question. So the brochure you had, and you mentioned going out to the residents, is this just those that have homes in the floodplain areas?
Yes, we mail it to everyone in the floodplain and/or those in the repetitive loss. So some of the repetitive loss areas are not necessarily in the floodplain, but they get it as well. And we also put there's some copies in the municipal building lobby. We try to put it in public places, but those are the ones we mail it to.
Because I think piggyback on what Councilmember Sanchez-Jones said, and she's referring to, I think, over by Fairhope and Cove Road.
Yes.
In that area. Excuse me, and those that are over in the countryside area, I know they have had some issues with some flooding over there as well. That's why I was asking the question. Yes.
And then, excuse me a second. I know that the city has done a great job in putting in a lot of culverts, I believe, and a lot of pipes, and so they've been doing a great job with that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
and the other item I just wanted to both acknowledge and thank everyone that was involved in Go Fest, of course, which just concluded this past weekend. Even with a little rain, it was a very successful event, and I'm sure that as all of the data is collected by Roanoke Outdoors, we'll start getting the reports coming in of how many people participated, the funds that they're able to contribute to some of our nonprofits in the area, which is a part of what goes on with it. But I know I was down there on Saturday, and it was a good crowd. So again, I think they certainly everyone involved in it probably took the day off to recover from it, and certainly want to thank them for the work that they did in making that happen. And those are my comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyle. Next, we're going to move to our city attorney, who has a couple of measures for our consideration. Tim, do you want to say anything before we move into these?
We'll take them one at a time. I believe there may be some questions. Just reminder, the first code amendment is in addressing the concern raised by Commissioner of Revenue, and this deals not with late payments, but with late filing, and we'll waive that penalty for late filing. Tangible personal property tax, and it deals with, if you're a business, sorry, this isn't going to help you. But if you're an individual, it can help you.
All right, thank you. So item A is an amendment of the city code, section 32-108E, taxpayers' return generally, and there is one measure, an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance amending and reordaining subsection E of section 32-108, taxpayers' return generally, Article 3, tax on tangible personal property generally, Chapter 32, taxation, Code of the City of Roanoke, as amended, to eliminate the late filing penalty on tangible personal property tax returns for motor vehicles, including trailers not used or employed in a trade or business, establishing an effective date and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? Mr. Priddy?
Just to share, the effective date is January 1st, 2024, and that solves some of my concerns with our projections.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Priddy?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. The second item B is the approval of an agreement to modify the concept plan for the development of Blue Hills Village. There is one measure and ordinance.
Move the ordinance. Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance approving the terms of an agreement to modify Blue Hills Village concept plan between the City of Roanoke, Virginia and the National Bank of Blacksburg, authorizing the city manager to execute such agreement, authorizing the city manager to implement, administer, and enforce such agreement, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, is there anything you'd like to add? This point?
If I could give a brief overview, this is good news. We have a developer who wants to bring in not one, but 2 hotels on 3 parcels of land. Currently, under the current modified agreement, lot number 5 is authorized to have a hotel, but 6 and 7 under the plan, and this was put in place so that we would have some sort of control, and this plan runs with the property, as to what happened in our industrial park and the commercial portion up front. So what this does is this ordinance will amend and modify, authorize city managers to sign the modification that will allow a hotel on lots 5, 6, or parcels 5, 6, and 7. And the plan is, I don't want to name those hotels specifically, because the last time we did this for a restaurant, we announced one restaurant and they went halfway through, no, that's not the one, we're going over here with this restaurant. So all I can tell you is at this point, we know that it's under the same banner, if you will, of hotels, but it'll be one and then another. So if it's under the Hilton banner, you can imagine the 2 types of hotels that it'll be. But this will authorize them to move forward, and I expect that we will hear really good news from our economic development folks once this moves a little further as to the number of jobs it's going to create.
Yeah, that's great. And increased hotel capacity.
Yes,
Which is
and
also-
tax revenues on both real estate as well as occupancy tax.
Are you in a position to state how many rooms these hotels will hold?
It's still in a
It's
little
still in
bit of
blue,
flux.
okay.
And that's where I don't want to step
Right, I
on
understand.
economic development's toes, so to speak,
Okay.
to announce that.
But it would be on the front end of the Blue Hills track where you from
Towards the
460?
front end, as you come in, it'll be, if you
Yes, I
know,
saw that, but
kind
that's
of
what
in
happened to State
between the Starbucks, and then you get to the daycare. Right in that bend, those 3 parcels put 2 hotels, and if you look at the plat,
Right.
it'll give you a really good idea of the layout, of the proposed layout.
I was just stating that for the public so they could actually hear it, since
Yes.
they may not have access to the design concept plan.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Any other questions? All right, well, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Priddy?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number 8 is the reports of committees. Number 1 is a report of the Roanoke City School Board requesting appropriation of funds for various educational programs, and a report of the city manager recommending that council concur in the request. Donna Caldwell, Director of Accounting, is a spokesperson. There's one measure, a budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Commonwealth, federal, and private grant for various educational programs, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 school grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, any discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Item 2 is a report of certain authorities, boards, committees, and commissions in which city council serve as liaisons or appointees. Are there any comments by council? Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Thank you. As the liaison, council's liaison representative to the Housing Authority, I do believe we have a joint meeting, Madam Clerk, is that correct? Oh, she finished writing.
Yes.
Joint- yeah,
Yes,
okay.
we did.
And I just wanted to, just to make sure that if the council members still had any items to put on the agenda to get with you.
Yes,
they
they
can
can
send
send
that
it
to
to me, or
Yes.
CC Webb would be fine.
Okay.
And that's at the first, at your next meeting.
Yes.
Right, it's the
Yes,
first
next
meeting in
meeting, yes.
November. I just wanted to make sure that
Great.
that was put back out there,
Yeah.
that we will be meeting jointly with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 9 is unfinished business, and we have none. Item 10, introduction and consideration of ordinance and resolutions. We have none.
Wait, do we have a walk-on?
Oh, we do, I'm sorry. We do. Thank you all. There was a resounding chorus of, "We have one, we have one," and here it is. Thank you. And I had it in front of my face. A resolution appointing Anita Reed as a Director of the Economic Development Authority of the City of Roanoke for a term of office commencing October 21st, 2023, and ending October 20th, 2027. And the measure is a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution appointing Anita Reed as a director on the Board of Directors of the Economic Development Authority of the City of Roanoke, Virginia.
Any discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the resolution is adopted. Item number 11 is motions and miscellaneous business. Number 1, inquiries or comments by members of council. Anyone have any comments or announcements? Mr. Pretty?
Go Fest was great. That's it. And I already shared what I was going to share about the Share the Air group that I saw there earlier, so. but
Fantastic.
Great event.
And item 2 is vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, and committees appointed by council. We have none to report today. Item 12 is recess. The council meeting will stand in recess for our closed meetings and will reconvene at 7:00 PM here in the council chambers.